Hi everybody, it's Michael from Sew In Place and Sew and Sweep, and this week on our Tech Tuesday video I'm going to talk about thread quality and thread weights and how it relates to your tensions on your sewing machines. Tension's a very funny thing that most people are really afraid of, but really all it boils down to is two pieces of metal squeezing your thread, and that's done by a spring compressing those two pieces of metal. So typically when we adjust our tension, we can tighten that knob, which will then make that spring more compressed, and that will then push harder against your thread. Now what we don't think about at times is the fact that our threads themselves can actually compress that spring from the other side. So if your thread's thicker, your tension is going to be much stronger than a thinner thread that's not pushing those springs apart quite as much. And the other part of that is if your thread is not of good quality, what you will find is instead of a nice smooth thread that's consistently the same thickness, certain threads can be thicker and thinner, which will cause these discs to push harder and softer and thus change your stitch quality in your fabrics. So we cannot always allow our machines to make the proper adjustments for us, because sometimes we're putting in something that the machine can't calculate, and so you have to make compensations for that. So if you're using a thicker thread, that's going to create more drag in the machine and more tension, and thus you'll have to reduce the tension. Same thing can be said for finer threads. You might have to adjust a little bit tighter to bring that stitch tighter into the fabric. Now there are machines today that are actually getting rid of this system. Viking and Pfaff have come up with a new design. It's called thread metering, where the machine no longer squeezes the thread, but the machine literally unwinds the correct amount of thread for each stitch. What this does then is each stitch is made identically regardless of how thick the thread is, because the thickness of the thread is no longer part of the equation. So that's it for this week. If you guys have any questions, you want to know a little more about the Vikings and Pfaffs or about thread tension issues, drop a line in the comments box and we'll see you next time.